Okay, welcome to this lecture. It will be a very short and brief lecture, and I will be talking about a few things just to get you started into this project. And I have a few other announcements at the end. And this is my first slide. And this is a bit of my concerns about you. How will you start this project without having first-hand information? And this is what I would probably have been doing if I were you. You haven't been contacting your product owners yet, and I assume that you have been thinking about a few items in this project. And the first one is you have to have a plan of attack, even though you don't know everything. That's number one, having a plan of attack. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, you have to figure out what the system will probably look like from a system overview point of view. I will present a short picture in a few minutes. And what that is a qualified guess of what the architecture will look like. And when you have that in front of you, it will most likely give you a few questions. And based on those questions, you can start assuming things. Even though I know that assuming is very bad, but that's the only thing you have right now. But apart from that plan of attack, I would probably try to get to know my teammates. And if you don't do that, do it right now, because you are humans and you all think differently. You have different moods, you have different viewpoints, you have different capabilities. So you really need to start talking about those things. And talking about capabilities, try to figure out your own capabilities. If we are talking about a multi-threaded system and there is no one in your team that knows how to handle multi-threaded applications, then you might be in trouble. So it better be off talking about those things at the very beginning of the project. The second point there is contact the product owner. Talk to your product owner and try to schedule a meeting as soon as possible. Okay. This is when things go very bad. Right. Thank you. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Right. Contact your product owner and try to get an appointment with him or her. One of the last points there was get to know also that tool you will be using in this project, and that is Redmine. Start using it, fiddle around with it, add some fake user stories, add some fake tasks if you want to, just to get an overview of it, get a grasp of the tool. Because it's not a very good idea to do that when the product is live, so to speak. What I also want you to know is that it is allowed to think right from the beginning of the project. So I want you to start your thinking process. It's very different between the thinking process itself and implementing the project. By implementing, you are configuring a server or writing some code. That's for sprint 1. But right now it is allowed to think. Okay. Let's see if that flickering stops some I hope Jakob is coming right now and helps me with this. And well, what do you know? Aha.
Känns det som. För nu går inte använt det så skit.
Okay. Bit of magic. Okay, so these are the two projects I've been presenting. The first one is the Twitter project, and the only thing you know is that it's going to collect some data and analyze those data, and you will be presenting it on a website. There are some useful information in that sentence. Tweets means Twitter. So most likely you will be talking to a Twitter server. You also know it's going to be Java on the server side. That's a bit of useful information. And then you also know that the product owner is Jonas Lundberg. That's the only thing you know right now. The web chat system is even more sparse, but I think that you have a fairly good grasp of what a web chat system is, because you are used to texting things or chatting over the computer. And that's me, who is the product owner. So based on those things, you could probably create a system overview, something like that. You will most likely have a web server, and if you are part of the Twitter project, you will have a Twitter server at the end. The web server is most likely to have some sort of storage which it talks to, because you are going to store tweets, and if you're a part of the web chat project, you are most likely to store credentials. You will have a web client, a browser to talk to, and all of those things arises a few questions, like on the web server, what kind of web server will you be using? The operating system, what should that be? If the only operating system you know of is Linux, well then Windows is out of the room. Do you know how to handle protocols based on Twitter servers? Have you ever handled or implemented a protocol before? Well, what you have to do is to surf into the Twitter site and have a look after the word API. So someone of the Twitter project should do that. The storage system, which is most likely a database system, what kind of database are you going to use in this project or both of the projects? Is it going to be NoSQL or a SQL? are the web server and the database going to reside on the same computer server? The browser, will you support any type of browser? The more questions you will be asking, the more questions you will sort of raise. And all of those questions sort of lead you somewhere. All right, are you following? Okay, that's good. So what I mean by this is that you can actually start to figure out how these two projects are going to work on a theoretical level. And you can start to get either nervous or dead calm. And there is also another thing in this. If you have the ability to suggest things, because let's go back to that. You're going to either use a Linux server or a Windows server. If the only thing you know is Linux, well, suggest a Linux server. Don't suggest a Windows one. So suggestion is a powerful tool. And if the product owner doesn't say anything about it, well, then it's up to you. So making suggestions to lead is a very powerful tool. And speaking of the product owner, if you're going to have a meeting with the product owner and the product owner talks a lot, it is very hard sometimes to actually understand what that person is saying. So recording a meeting is also a very useful tool. Because I might say something, but I mean something entirely different. Either on purpose or I didn't understand that I was sort of in the same sentence making two directions of a decision. So when I'm having sort of tougher meetings, I usually record them. So if the recording takes about 1 hour, it takes about 2 hours to listen to it and try to figure out what those persons are saying. That's just a bit of a tip. You may use this system overview if you want to. There's no problem with that. So, once again, this slide is from the last lecture I had. It tells you that if you are the Scrum Master, you are entitled to call me once every week and have a short mentoring meeting if you wish. I prefer Skype. Also remember that each team switches their Scrum Master after 4 iterations. And that the Scrum Master also is a part of the development team. Otherwise you will have a Scrum Master pointing with his full hand and actually not doing anything. Some people like it that way. Okay. So, I want you to notify me, and I think that the 10th is on Friday. So by Friday, I want you to tell me who your team's Scrum Masters are.
It's Thursday.
It's Thursday. Well, then it's Thursday. I should also point out that the course site's URL has been changed. And it is the HT16 at the end of the URL that has been removed. Jakob had some information about why it was that way, but I don't remember it anymore. Also, you have GitHub at your hand if you want to. If you want to version handling your source code or perhaps your documentation. Some of you might want to use Redmine for handling your documentation and only the source code at GitHub. It's up to you. What I don't want you to do is managing your documents using both GitHub and Redmine, because you will at the end never remember did we say GitHub or did we say Redmine, and then you have two versions of the same document. And the last point here is that students that are not part of a team will be deregistered from this course. Right? Okay. So the last one is questions. Do you have any? Yeah.
Så vi ska rapportera som Scrum Master gäller även oss som är i Twitter-projektet. Eller ska vi då rapportera till Jonas?
You will notify me regarding who your Scrum Masters are. So, yeah. So if you are contacting Jonas as a Scrum Master, he will try sort of get it that you are the contact person. But I want to know who your Scrum Masters are. More questions? Right? Someone is writing on Slack something. There will be only 2 Scrum Masters on each team. If there would be a new Scrum Master each iteration, there will be a lot of context switching, and that's very bad for a project. Okay. Thank you for today.